What's going on, everyone? Scott here. Welcome back to the channel. So Michigan State football loses their first game of the season, 31-45, out in LA against USC, a game that finished at about 3 o'clock in the morning, Eastern Standard Time. So a fantastic night was had by all. But in all seriousness, I think there's a lot of overreactions from this game, especially from the Michigan State side of things. We're going to touch on that first, then we're going to get into, the stats, kind of X's and O's, about the game, a normal recap like we usually do. But then kind of just looking forward to the bye week coming up this week. And as we move into, the next part of the schedule, the middle part of the schedule after this bye week. But before we do jump in, if you could, just hit that like and subscribe button down there. We'll have more Michigan State football content on the channel. Also, at the time of recording too, recording it on Monday, first day of basketball practice today for Michigan State and around the country. Michigan State Madness. Coming up next Friday, we'll have, a little video before or after, kind of, just early preseason talking about this team. Tom Izzo met with the media today, so got a little bit of insight kind of how things are going. But, after we get to see them in kind of a live sort of scrimmage-ish type practice environment, Michigan State Madness a little bit at the end of that thing, getting back into the Breslin is always exciting. So we'll have more around that with basketball, starting to heat up, starting practice here today. But then this week, as I said, with football being a bye week, we'll have this recap today. But then kind of at the end of this thing, we'll, kind of level set with where we're at after 4 games of the season as we move into the second part of this, schedule for Michigan State after this bye week. So just make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a video. So I'm going to start out, as I said, I think a lot of overreaction on Michigan State's side. And I do feel like, yes, I'm recording this on Monday, so this isn't an instant reaction thing. But I had this thought in the moment. I saw some people had this thought in the moment too, and I'm glad people are coming around to it. I've seen more people say it over the last day or so since the game. But listen, if this game was played last year or over the last couple of years, you can even go back. I know different, coaching staffs, different players, whatnot, but you just look at it. We've seen this game. This is like a 53-10 game. Like, this is a game that, USC just keeps it going. Michigan State's defense can't get any stops. They're up 35-7 at halftime, and we're seeing backups in the third quarter for both sides of this thing. Like, this is a game that we're not taking moral victories. This is Michigan State. Like, yes, over the last handful of years, Michigan State has been down aside from the Kenneth Walker year, but this is still Michigan State. Like, we don't take moral victories at all, and nor should you, expect, especially with the landscape of college football how it is now. But I think something does have to be said about this game. Wasn't a blowout. Like, at times it maybe felt like that because things kept rolling for Michigan State, and at times like things just weren't going their way at all, and they were hit with some bad luck. And that's football. That's sports as a whole. College sports. As a whole, sports in general as a whole. But had some bad luck with injuries. Questionable calls, other stuff. You get that in every game. Every side gets that. So that's not out of line to say that. But like, things just weren't going their way. But something has to be said about them still fighting, and especially that third quarter. In that third quarter, when Michigan State got within 7, they were a stop away. And they had a couple chances to get that stop from going down and tying the game in the fourth quarter. And, there was a lot of pressure on USC. And you have to credit to them. They made plays. They made the plays, the winning plays, to win this game. But I think a lot of overreaction, not just because of that, but you look at how the team played. First off, the offense, I thought they played really well. Like, overall, like, I think that was a solid, B-plus game. B-plus game for the offense. The defense, it was bad. It was very, very bad. But they were questions that we've already known throughout this season so far. The secondary we've had questions about. We didn't know what it was going to be like. The not being able to get home to the quarterback, 0 sacks again, no tackles for loss for Michigan State. Those are problems that we've seen. But then you mix that with, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Obviously on the offense, you did have, Mekhi Frazier was banged up coming into this game. So was Nick Marsh. Mekhi Frazier still went for 14 carries. Nick Marsh only 2 catches on the game. But on the defensive side of the ball, I mean, first off, we'll start with, Wayne Matthews. Obviously, he had that really scary injury, taken off on the board, went to the hospital. Thankfully, he was good enough to fly home with the team. Haven't seen any more, like, formal updates on Wayne Matthews. I believe he tweeted out that, he's doing okay, and he'll be back. So obviously wishing nothing but the best for Wayne Matthews. That was a really scary moment there right before halftime. And also during the game, other injury notes, he had Quindarius Dunnigan go out. I believe he had Nikai Martinez go out of the game as well on the same play. I believe they ran into each other. They didn't come back in the game. Offensive linemen, you had Stanton Ramil go out of the game in the first half as well. You got really banged up. And then you had in my opinion, not just saying this, you can watch any game. You can turn on two teams that I, never watch. You can turn on any college football game and you don't know what targeting is, but you have your best defensive player, arguably your best defensive player, your leader for sure on the defensive side of the ball in Jordan Hall. He gets taken out of the game in the first half with a questionable targeting call, because every targeting call is questioning because there is no distinct method to calling what a targeting is. No one knows what targeting is. I don't believe ref to ref. They can tell you the exact same thing what a targeting is, and that's just the luck of the draw with targeting, in my opinion, is that, you can have some games over the past couple years. I mean, Malik Spencer hits people really hard. We saw in this game as well. It was kind of borderline. It was a clean hit. Broadcasters, everyone said it was a clean hit. But, he's had some hard hits over the years where he's got called for a couple targetings, I believe. But there's been a couple like, whoa. And not just, singling him out, but other, Michigan State players as well, haven't got called for targeting. And then there's been some, like the Jordan Hall one, like the other one where I believe it was Malcolm Bell for Michigan State. He was literally falling down and his helmet hit the ball carrier's helmet and they reviewed that for targeting. The fact of the matter is sometimes you get lucky, you don't get called for targeting, and sometimes you put in a bad position and you get called for targeting. And that's what happens. It's a very broken rule, across college, college football. Not just saying that because it happened and affected the team that I play for. You can watch any game that targeting is called and say, how is that targeting? And the refs won't be able to explain it the exact same way because there's not like distinct things that they're looking for across the board. In my opinion, a lot of people's opinion too across the board, you just don't know what targeting is. But besides that, so the injuries, Jordan Hall getting taken out due to targeting, but his backup, who I'm very high on, and Brady Pretzloff, he's got a lot of run this season so far. He wasn't playing in this game either. So you look at just the linebacker core, Jordan Hall out for targeting, Wayne Matthews out with the scary injury right before halftime, Brady Pretzloff as well, not playing in this game. So you got really thin at that linebacker core, which was coming into the year probably your deepest room on the roster. And, within the first half, you lose two of your starters in Jordan Hall and Wayne Matthews. So given the defense, and I'm giving the defense a little bit of credit here. Yes, they played objectively. They played horrible this game. I mean, the secondary, just got torched. Then not getting to the pass or not getting to the quarterback. Stuff we've seen this season. But they came out there. They kept fighting. They got a big turnover in this one that really helped set them up in that third quarter. Really put them in a good position. And they made a couple of key plays for them to get it close to 7. But they just couldn't get that last stop. There was a couple of them that you credit Jaden Mayava for USC, just able to get out of plays and, make a big play because he is a really good quarterback, probably going to be within the Heisman conversation here if he isn't already. But some of it you just have to credit USC's offense, but some is some stuff that we've seen throughout the year so far that just didn't go Michigan State's way, weren't able to make the plays. And at the end of the day, you got to make the plays. So that's what I'm giving them credit for and why I think there's some overreactions here for on the Michigan State side of things is, the fact that they kept fighting in this thing. I mean, that's a lame take, and that's, not something that a program like Michigan State should, say, but that's something that you can hang your hat on. This team, kept going, and they almost came all the way back. The defense just couldn't get a stop to go out there and, make the plays. Was the offense perfect either? No, it wasn't perfect. I mean, 3.5 yards a carry, per carry for the offense, that isn't going to cut it either. So there's things to talk about on both sides of the ball, but I think this thing is overblown. At the end of the day, you're sitting at 3-1, which after 4 games, if you go back before the season, we talked about it on here, other shows, other podcasts, YouTube shows, columns, whatever. Everyone was pretty much on board with, if you can walk out of these first 4 games 3-1, hey, you're doing a really good job. Next week, after this bye week, Nebraska, that's when things start to really get interesting. Because, if you come out of this 3-2, it's like, okay, you had 2 tough Big Ten road games, but now you're 0-2 in the Big Ten. Yes, you're coming home to a UCLA team that has looked really bad this year, fired their coach, whatnot, but you were expected to be 3-1. You were fine with being 3-1 in this game. But the fact that the offense, I think, looked as good as they looked on Saturday, I think is also why there's some overreaction from the Michigan State side of things, that the defense wasn't able to hold up its end of the bargain, because felt like that this was a game that they definitely could have had and definitely could have been a big signature win early on in Jonathan Smith's career here, and definitely a jump and a boost to this Michigan State program that was off to a there was some good vibes to start this season, but definitely kind of maybe didn't win games so far in terms of Western and Youngstown in the ways that for sure the people in the building would want to, and as fans would want to. But that's why I think there's overreaction. I think overall 3-1, I think every Michigan State fan, if you take a step back from the frustration of this game, at the beginning of the season, if you said you're sitting at 3-1 after this stretch, I think pretty much everyone would take that. You'd love to be 4-0. I think there was definitely a shot to be 4-0, but you'll take 3-1 at this point. Now, let's just get into some stats here real quick. Jayden Maiava, as I said, I think he'll be in the Heisman conversations. Wouldn't necessarily say he's one of the favorites right now, but definitely so far with his play this season has put himself in that conversation. 20 for 26, 234 yards, 3 touchdowns. Rushing was really what kind of just absolutely destroyed Michigan State. Wayman Jordan, 18 carries, 157 yards. That's 8.7 yards a carry. Eli Sanders, 16 carries for 90 yards. That's 5.6 yards a carry. Jayden Maiava, he had 4 carries for 31 yards, and he took 2 of them in for a touchdown. Makai Lemon as well from the wide receiver position. He took a touchdown in as well off a little jet sweep action. And then keeping with Makai Lemon, 8 catches for 127 yards and a touchdown. Then just had a lot of balls spread out. Outside of him, he caught 8 of them, 8 receptions, then a bunch of 2s down the roster there for USC. As we said, they lost the 1 fumble that Michigan State was able to get. Overall sacks, they sacked Aiden Giles twice on the night, 7 tackles for loss, though, for that USC defense. You flip it over to Michigan State. As I said, I thought the offense played a B+ game. Thought it played really solid. I thought it played well enough to be in the game to win. Obviously, if the defense made a couple plays, I think 31 points on the road against USC, that's like right on the curve. I think you probably needed about 34-ish points to probably win this game if the defense played, what they're capable of playing. Like if they could have won this game 34-31, 34-27, something like that, 28, somewhere in there. I think that was the recipe for Michigan State to win this game. But Aiden Giles, 12 for 21, 212 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, still only 1 interception on the year. Night and day from last year. Keep singing Aiden Giles' praises. There was a couple throws. I'd seen him miss 1 or 2 throws, that, would have extended drives and whatnot. But, overall, very happy with the first 4 games here for Aiden Giles. Omari Kelly, 2 pass attempts. Really incredible one, 13 yards down there to Michael Masunis for the 1 completion. Mekhi Frazier, as we said, banged up coming in, but he still rushed it for 14 times for 61 yards. And then Aiden Giles, 9 carries for 31 yards, 3.4 yards a carry with a touchdown as well. And his touchdown, incredible spin move there on the goal line to get in traffic. Brandon Tullis, 7 carries for 16 yards. Omari Kelly leading the way in the wide receiver room in this game with 6 catches for 133 yards and a touchdown. That 75-yard touchdown there. Krishawn McCray, 2 for 48 yards. He had a touchdown on the night as well. As we said, Nick Marsh banged up coming into this one. 2 catches for 28 yards. Jack Velling had his first touchdown of the year. 1 catch for 1 yard, and it was very close, right on the line, but he got it in for his first touchdown of the year. And then that fumble Michigan State recovered. Grady Kelly recovered it. Armarion Smith, I believe, was the one who punched it out. And Armarion Smith, he has made some incredible plays, forcing turnovers so far at the beginning of this year. Obviously, filling in for Nikai Martinez at points before Nikai Martinez came back, but then even just being involved on the defense, Armarion Smith has made a handful of incredible plays so far this year. forcing fumbles, 2 fumbles, I believe he's forced so far on the year, helping force turnovers, has an interception, I believe, on the year as well. So really good start to the year for Amarion Smith. But as we said, for the Michigan State defense, no sacks, no tackles for loss. That just can't happen. And this has been a problem non-stop over the last year or so for Michigan State. So things just got to improve on that front. I mean, we talked about it after last game, going into this game, like what's going to decide Michigan State's season. There's a handful of things, different parts of the game, but on the defensive side, it comes down to, are you able to create pressure and get to the quarterback, and are you able to defend in the secondary? You weren't able to do either of those two things in this game, therefore that's why you lose this game. The no tackles for loss thing too is, some of that is credit to USC with the way they play. They're, very slippery, able to get out of the backfield, get quick passes off as well. But at the end of the day, you just got to get home. Like, it just has to be done. Otherwise, you're not going to have the season you want to. And as a defense, you're not going to have the success you want to. Overall, 5 for 11 for Michigan State on third down, but USC 8 for 12 on third down, and a lot of those were backbreakers. They're at the end of, when Michigan State was trying to make their comeback, get off the field, couldn't. 0 for 1 for Michigan State on fourth down, 1 for 2 for USC. The total yards, 337 for Michigan State and 523. That big a difference in yards, and the fact that you were still within the game in the fourth quarter, only down 14, lose by 14 points. I still think that's, pretty good, and says a lot about Michigan State's offense. Rushing, as we said, that just not a good day on the ground. 112 yards for Michigan State compared to 289 for USC. Thought Michigan State, okay, I think this is probably their most penalized game, though. 6 penalties for 53 yards. USC had 11 penalties for 82 yards, which that's what they talked about during the broadcast, too. Been a problem for USC this season. And then, of course, Michigan State forcing that fumble as well. 28-54 time of possession compared to 31-06 for USC. So I think that's kind of the point here, is things could have been a lot worse, and I think that's part of the overreaction. The fact that it wasn't, we're not taking any moral victories, but the fact that they stayed in there, they fought. I thought the offense looked really good. The defense, while they didn't look good as a whole, they showed some moments where forcing that turnover, getting a stop, 1 or 2 times, just couldn't put enough stops together in order to allow the team to, get in a position to tie the game, possibly go and win the game. So that's that. As we said, now we're going into the bye week before we head to Nebraska. Just announced it today, I believe, 4 o'clock kick for Nebraska coming up after this bye week. But hopefully all the guys that were banged up in this game get healthy, come back, kind of, get everyone right, healthy as you can, coming towards the middle of the season here. Going into Nebraska, because it's going to be a tough environment, no doubt. Tough place to play. I think Nebraska, especially, tough place to play, but I think they're a solid team. I had them kind of middle tier of the Big Ten, and I think we've seen that so far this year. But this is a big game. If you win this game and you're sitting at, 4-1 going into homecoming against UCLA, and that's a game that, UCLA has had a really rough year so far, 0-3, fired their coach already. If you can beat Nebraska on the road, I think would definitely be a big win for this team, obviously. And then you can come home and beat UCLA for homecoming. You're sitting at 5-1. You need 1 game over your last 6 to get to a bowl game. That's the goal here. I still think the ceiling is higher. I still think the ceiling is 7-8 wins, and I still think that's a possibility. But that 7-8 wins definitely heavily relies on, can you get a win against Nebraska? So that'll do it for this one. As I said, we'll be back. We'll be back with the video for Michigan State Madness, for Michigan State basketball. That'll probably be after. So we'll probably have a recap for the football game against Nebraska, or a preview for the Nebraska game out. For that, we'll probably do something for Michigan State Madness after the fact, so we can say what we saw at Michigan State Madness. But yeah, that'll do it for this one. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace out.